Welcome, chosen ones. Pay close attention. The higher the place, the deeper the shadows. Chosen one, what if I told you that right now your name is being spoken in rooms you'll never walk into, and decisions are being made about you by people who have never even met you? That's not a movie script. That's reality. History has proven it. Alliances have toppled kings, covered fugitives, and rewritten nations. All because someone in a high place decided to quietly protect a single life. Here's the twist. You are that life. And the shock, the allies assigned to you aren't small-time supporters. They're powerhouses, with access to systems, information, and doors your enemies could never break through. While your enemies are busy plotting, people you've never shaken hands with are shaking up entire agendas just to keep you untouchable. And let's be brutally honest. If your enemies knew who was actually standing behind you, half of them would faint and the other half would suddenly find religion. Imagine thinking you're just fighting ordinary you, only to discover you've been sparring against a shield reinforced by connections, authority, and forces you can't bribe, threaten, or outmaneuver. The truth is, you've become a classified subject in this world's unspoken hierarchy. Not because of who you know, but because of what you carry. And the humor in it all. The very people who dismissed you as irrelevant are about to watch in disbelief as doors open for you that even their most expensive favors couldn't buy. So sit tight, because the plan that's unfolding around you isn't just protection, it's strategy. And when the final move is revealed, it won't just shock your enemies, it will shock you too. Number one, their resources were never meant for you. Yet they're now being weaponized on your behalf. Their resources were never meant for you, yet they're now being weaponized on your behalf. That's the part people can't wrap their heads around. The very networks, wealth, and connections that were once locked away, kept in the hands of those who swore you'd never have access, are now being redirected to protect and elevate you. It's almost insulting to your enemies, because for years they convinced themselves you were powerless, unsupported, and alone. What they didn't expect is that the very structures they thought belonged to them would be turned against them, not out of loyalty, but out of divine rearrangement. You have to understand how shocking that is to the people who plotted against you. They prided themselves on having influence in the right places. They believed that influence was a weapon only they could use. And yet, without your asking, without your begging, those same channels are moving in your favor. Their power has become a boomerang. It left their hands aimed at you, but came back in a form they can't control. That's not just irony. That's spiritual checkmate. The beauty of this twist is that it strips away every illusion your enemies had about being in control. They thought connections made them untouchable, but now they're realizing connections mean nothing if the unseen hand redirects them. You didn't campaign for these allies. You didn't kiss rings or sell yourself short to gain access. The resources simply shifted. And because it wasn't your doing, no one can take credit for it, and no one can snatch it back from you. What makes this even more brutal is that it exposes the weakness of your enemy's foundation. For so long, they told themselves, we have the money, the status, the ties. We win by default. But now they're seeing their money doesn't move the same way. Their status doesn't buy the same silence, and their ties are quietly crossing over to your side. They built their identity on having leverage, and that leverage is slipping right out of their hands. That's why this protection feels so unstoppable. It's not that you suddenly became rich or influential. It's that the very wealth and influence they guarded like treasure has been recoded to defend you. Nothing shocks a rival more than realizing their greatest assets have quietly switched teams. And the most painful part for them, they can't call it betrayal. They can only call it fate. Number two, your name became a password in rooms you've never stepped into. Your name became a password in rooms you've never stepped into. That's the kind of power that unnerves people, because it means influence is moving on your behalf in places your feet have never touched. While you go about your day, conversations are happening in offices, boardrooms, and private meetings where your story is being spoken with a weight that forces people to adjust their plans. The moment your name is dropped, strategies shift. People you've never met are debating what to do about you. And the shocking part is that you're not even present to defend yourself or plead your case. The very mention of you has become an invisible hand that tilts the scales. This unsettles your enemies deeply because they work tirelessly to convince themselves and others that you're irrelevant. They painted you as small, powerless, and unworthy of attention. Yet here's the reality. People in higher places now treat your name as something that cannot be ignored. To them, you're not just another individual. You're a factor, a variable that can alter outcomes. That's why your presence is being felt in places you've never been. You've become a subject of discussion at levels your enemies can't reach, and that terrifies them. What makes this extraordinary is how it happened. You didn't force yourself into those rooms. You didn't bribe your way in. And you didn't need to beg for a seat at the table. The truth of who you are has traveled further than your physical body ever could. Your resilience, your survival, your very existence has carried a vibration that reaches ears you may never see face to face. And once your name arrives in those spaces, it doesn't leave unchanged. People feel compelled to handle it with caution because there's weight behind it. A sense that tampering with you carelessly comes with consequences. This is what separates you from those who rely on politics or manipulation to gain influence. Their presence dies the moment they leave the room. Yours multiplies without you even being there. And that is what stings the most for your enemies. They invested years trying to silence you, yet your name travels further in silence than their voice does in noise. They can't stop it, they can't erase it, and they can't predict where it will echo next. That's why your protection feels so surreal. You don't have to knock on every door. Your name already entered before you did, and it carries authority that forces people to listen. Number 3, they protect you because breaking you would break the system they serve. They protect you because breaking you would break the system they serve. That's the part most people overlook. Your life isn't just about you anymore. It's tied into something far bigger, something that keeps balance in place. If you were destroyed, the ripple effect wouldn't stop with you. It would trigger collapses in places your enemies never imagined. That's why allies in high places, even ones who don't fully understand you, are compelled to make sure you're still standing. Protecting you is not about pity. It's about preservation. Your enemies can't grasp this truth because they see you as an isolated target. To them, you're just one person they think they can break. But what they don't realize is that your survival is connected to countless outcomes. Remove you, and entire plans unravel, harm you, and power structures they rely on begin to destabilize. You've become a hidden anchor, not because you asked for it, but because the weight of your purpose carries consequences they can't afford to release. This is why certain people in high positions treat you with an unusual level of caution. They may not show it openly, but behind closed doors, they know the truth. Touching you recklessly could backfire on everything they're trying to protect. That's the irony. You were underestimated for so long, yet now your existence has become non-negotiable. They may not love you. They may not even like you, but they are forced to respect the role you play in a design greater than their own ambition. Your enemies feel frustrated because they thought their status or connections gave them all the leverage. But here's what stings. Your presence carries more weight than their titles. They can move money, pull strings, and gather crowds. But if the system collapses without you in it, their own safety, wealth, and influence are jeopardized. Protecting you is protecting themselves, and that truth burns their pride. This is what makes your protection so untouchable. It's not about favoritism. It's about necessity. The moment your enemies understand this, the game ends for them. They wanted you out of the way, but they're learning the hard truth. Removing you would destroy the very ground they're standing on, and no one, no matter how powerful, dares to bring down the system that feeds them. That's why you're still here, and that's why you'll continue to be guarded. Number 4. Their watchful eyes are not just human, they're spiritual surveillance systems. Their watchful eyes are not just human, they're spiritual surveillance systems. It's easy to think of allies only in terms of people, but the reality is much more layered. Some of your protectors are visible, the ones with authority, influence, or access. They might hold titles, wear uniforms, or move within systems that look ordinary on the surface, but beyond them lies another tier of protection. Unseen forces that track, intercept, and redirect events long before they ever reach you. That's why enemies find themselves stumbling over their own schemes. They're colliding with guardians they cannot detect or outsmart. This kind of protection doesn't move the way people expect. Enemies imagine straightforward battles, intimidation, sabotage, manipulation. But when they make a move against you, strange things happen. Calls don't go through, plans collapse at the last second. Someone suddenly has a change of heart, or circumstances shift so fast that what was meant to harm you ends up dissolving into nothing. To the untrained eye, it looks like coincidence. To those paying attention, it's surveillance. An invisible shield that scans ahead, blocks threats, and roots danger before it touches you. What unsettles your enemies most is the precision of it. They think they're being clever, but it feels to them as if their moves are being watched in real time. And the truth is they are. Every whisper, every plot, every trap is being monitored by forces that don't need permission slips, cameras, or technology. This is not the kind of surveillance you can erase or outrun. It sees into the intent behind the action, not just the action itself. That's why it never misses. This is also why you survive attacks you never even knew were aimed at you. Some dangers are blocked before they even reach your awareness, and you're left wondering why life suddenly shifted in your favor. It wasn't luck. It was protection at a level that doesn't announce itself, but always leaves fingerprints in the outcome. Your enemies will never admit it, but this is what terrifies them most. They can fight you, but they can't fight what surrounds you. They can argue with your words, but they can't silence the forces that monitor their every move. Their frustration grows because every attempt ends the same way. Not only do they fail, but they fail in ways that make it obvious something bigger is watching. Number 5, you're being guarded, not just protected because you're a future investment. You're being guarded, not just protected because you're a future investment. That's the difference most people miss. Regular protection is about keeping someone safe in the moment, but the type of shield around you isn't just about today. It's about the ripple effect your life will create tomorrow and the tomorrows after that. High-level allies don't look at you as just another person moving through life. They see you as a seed carrying potential that will multiply into something much greater than you alone. Protecting you is less about pity or kindness and more about preservation of what must come forth. This truth separates you from the average person. Enemies underestimate you because they only measure what they can see now. They judge your current position, your resources, your circumstances. But your allies in higher places, both human and spiritual, aren't looking at who you are in this moment. They're looking at the unfolding blueprint. They know that within you lies influence that won't just affect your circle, but will expand into dimensions that outlive you. That kind of potential cannot be left exposed, and this is why you're guarded on levels you don't always recognize. Some of the doors that closed in your face were not rejection, they were shields. Some of the delays that frustrated you were not punishment, they were preservation. Every interference in your path has been calculated not just to keep you alive, but to keep intact the integrity of what you carry. Because once it's released, it won't just bless you. It will multiply into others, creating impact that reaches generations. Your enemies are confused because they think protection should come as a reward. They believe you had to earn it through status or performance. But your protection comes from destiny, not bargaining. Those guarding you see the harvest in advance, so they treat you like a living investment. And investments are not left unguarded. They're secured until their value fully manifests. That's why attempts to destroy you fail so dramatically. You're not just a person surviving day to day. You're a seed being preserved until its fruit is undeniable. And no one in their right mind allows an investment of that magnitude to be wasted. Guarding you is about ensuring the future that must unfold. And that's a future too costly to risk losing. Number 6, your shield is not fragile, it's multi-layered. Your shield is not fragile, it's multi-layered. This is why your enemies stay frustrated, because they keep underestimating the depth of the protection surrounding you. They assume that if they can bribe one person, silence one voice, or remove one ally, the shield around you will collapse. What they don't realize is that your safety doesn't depend on a single gatekeeper. It's designed with layers overlapping in ways that regenerate the moment one weakens. If one layer is compromised, another immediately takes its place, and the cycle continues until every threat is neutralized. This is why attacks against you feel like they should work, but somehow don't. Enemies think they found the perfect opening, but before the strike lands, another unseen barrier rises to block it. They can't track how it happens, and that drives them mad. They're left wondering who keeps covering for you, who keeps stepping in at the last minute. But the truth is, it's not one person. It's a system of protection orchestrated on multiple fronts, both human and spiritual. What makes this so extraordinary is the timing. Your protection activates with precision, often at the exact moment it's needed. If someone betrays you, another person unexpectedly shows up with loyalty. If a door is slammed, another one opens right when you need it most. This constant regeneration makes your shield indestructible because it's not static. It's alive, adjusting in real time. Your enemies are trying to fight something fluid, something that adapts faster than they can plan. That's why they keep losing ground. It also exposes how powerless they really are. They thought betrayal would be your downfall, but betrayal only proved how resilient your shield actually is. They thought removing one ally would leave you defenseless, but the loss only triggered reinforcements. They thought isolation would weaken you, but it only revealed how many layers of unseen protection were standing by. Every failed attempt forces them to realize the truth. Your shield is not a wall they can break. It's a living system that constantly regenerates. This is why you continue to stand untouched. Your enemies are swinging at one layer, blind to the countless others waiting behind it. And by the time they realize the depth of your protection, it's already too late. Because your shield is built to outlast every strike, every betrayal, and every scheme. Number 7, their shock will be realizing who your allies actually are. Their shock will be realizing who your allies actually are. The real twist isn't that you have protection. It's the identity of the one standing behind you. People expect your defenders to be obvious. Family, close friends, maybe a mentor or a religious figure. That's what makes the revelation so unsettling. Instead of the predictable faces, your shield often comes from the very institutions and personalities your enemies believed would crush you. The same systems they tried to use against you end up working in your favor. That's why the shock cuts so deep. Your enemies took comfort in believing they had influence in the right places. They assumed the courts, the networks, the leaders, or the organizations they leaned on would back them. They bragged about who they knew and where their connections reached. Yet when the moment came, those very same connections shifted sides and became your covering. To your enemies, it feels like betrayal. But in reality, it's divine realignment. The tables didn't just turn. The entire floor flipped under their feet. This is what makes your story so extraordinary. Protection for most people comes from expected sources, but yours is laced with irony. A judge who should have been biased suddenly favors you. An officer who should have been blind to the truth sees clearly on your behalf. A stranger in power with no personal ties to you decides to intervene. Each time it happens, it leaves your enemies speechless because it was never supposed to be that way. In their minds, those figures belong to them, not you. And here lies the deeper layer. This kind of protection cannot be explained by politics, favoritism, or luck. It's a higher hand moving pieces across the board, turning enemies into witnesses and institutions into shields. What was built to destroy you becomes the very thing that preserves you. That reversal stings your enemies the most because it proves that even their strongest weapons can be repurposed against them. So the shock isn't just in the fact that you are covered. It's in realizing by whom. The very names, faces, and systems they once trusted to fight for them have been reassigned to guard you. And when that truth fully dawns on them, they'll know the game is over because it's impossible to win against protection that turns their own power into your shield. Number 8, you've been classified as untouchable, and that status is not negotiable. You've been classified as untouchable, and that status is not negotiable. This isn't about favors being pulled or deals being struck on your behalf. It's a decree, a command issued from a place higher than politics, money, or influence. Somewhere beyond the reach of ordinary power, lines have been drawn around your life. Do not touch. That line is not up for debate, and it's not subject to human approval. It's written into the unseen order of things, and no amount of scheming can erase it. This is what shocks your enemies the most. They assume the reason they can't reach you is fear. Fear of exposure, fear of retaliation, fear of losing by thinking others are just too cautious to move against you. But the truth is far deeper. It's not hesitation that restrains them. It's law. Not human law that can be bent or bought, but spiritual law that locks their hands before they even realize it. They try to step forward and doors close. They try to strike and their own weapons boomerang back. They try to organize and the alliance crumbles before it starts. That's why your survival doesn't make sense to them. They've seen people more powerful than you fall with ease. They've watched reputations collapse, resources dry up, and even entire families destroyed by the kind of schemes they've set against you. So when you continue to stand untouched, unbroken, unshaken, it doesn't add up. What they don't realize is that your classification has been stamped in a place they cannot access. It isn't based on your status, your wealth, or even your defense. It's based on a decree. You're not allowed to be broken. And that status isn't temporary. It doesn't expire with seasons. It doesn't weaken with betrayal. And it doesn't crumble under pressure. It is fixed. That's why attempts to reach you always fail at the last moment. Something intervenes. Not coincidence, but enforcement. You've been marked in a way that ensures any hand stretched against you will pay the price for disobedience. So the shock for your enemies isn't just realizing you're protected. It's realizing you're untouchable by command. They can waste time plotting, but they can't rewrite the decree. And the longer they fight it, the more they'll discover the brutal truth. Some laws exist beyond their reach, and you are living under one of them. Number 9, your enemies aren't just losing, they're being monitored. Your enemies aren't just losing, they're being monitored. Every scheme they set in motion, every trap they lay, every whisper they spread isn't just failing. It's being logged as evidence against them. That's the part they never see coming. They think their plans vanish once they collapse. But in truth, nothing disappears. Every move is recorded, every intention is tracked, and every failure becomes a file in a case they didn't know was being built. The shocking twist is that your protection isn't only about shielding you, it's about indicting them. This is why their frustration grows with each failed attempt. They're not just hitting walls, they're creating a trail of proof that exposes exactly who they are. And because they're blinded by pride, they don't even realize they're writing their own judgment. The very energy they spend trying to destroy you is being redirected as testimony against them. The more they persist, the thicker their record becomes until there's no way out but to face consequences they thought they were too clever to escape. This level of surveillance is what unnerves them without them even knowing why. It's why strange setbacks keep hitting them after they come against you. It's why opportunities slip through their fingers, partnerships crumble, and secrets get exposed at the worst possible time. None of it is random. It's accountability unfolding in real time. They're being watched not just by human eyes, but by systems far beyond their reach. Spiritual forces, divine order, and even unlikely witnesses they didn't think were paying attention. And here's the irony. They believed you were the one under a microscope. For years they poked, prodded, and studied your every move, waiting for you to slip. But while they thought they were gathering dirt on you, what was really happening was dirt being gathered on them. Every accusation they threw became evidence of their own corruption. Every trap they dug became a record of their intent. In trying to expose you, they exposed themselves. That's why your enemies don't just lose. They lose with receipts. Protection over your life doesn't just block attacks. It transforms those attacks into judgment against the attackers. And when the reckoning arrives, they'll realize too late that they were never hunting you. They were building the case that would bring themselves down. Number 10, you're the reason powerful people are suddenly turning on each other. You're the reason powerful people are suddenly turning on each other. What once looked like unity among your enemies is now unraveling into suspicion, paranoia, and betrayal. They believed their alliance would overwhelm you, that their collective power would box you in with no escape. But your divine shield doesn't just block their attacks, it flips their unity into division. Instead of moving in sync, they're now watching each other with side eyes, wondering who in their circle has already turned into your quiet ally. That's the brilliance of the protection around you. It doesn't only dismantle attacks, it dismantles the attackers. When they gather to conspire, something invisible begins to work on their minds. Whispers creep in, doubts take root, old grudges resurface. Suddenly, the very people who once toasted their shared mission are second-guessing motives. Who's leaking information? Who's holding back? Who's secretly protecting them? They can't prove anything. But the paranoia itself is enough to fracture the group. The more they fight you, the more they fight each other. That's why plots against you never last long. Even when they seem coordinated, cracks appear faster than they can patch them. Someone gets greedy. Another loses patience. Another starts questioning the plan altogether. And when that happens, the entire scheme begins to eat itself from the inside out. What was meant to crush you instead becomes their own undoing. What makes this especially humiliating for your enemies is that they can't blame you directly. You didn't sneak into their meetings or plant spies in their circle. You didn't manipulate them into self-destruction. They did it to themselves under the weight of a divine order that refuses to let unity stand against you. They thought strength was in their numbers, but your shield transforms those numbers into chaos. And here's the deeper sting. They start realizing that not everyone around them hates you as much as they do. Some secretly admire you. Some silently respect you. Some are already weighing the cost of betraying the group to protect you. That possibility alone keeps them restless and divided. They can't fully trust each other because deep down they know your presence shifts loyalties. So instead of unity crushing you, you've become the reason their alliances crumble. And by the time they notice what's happening, their once strong circle is nothing more than fragments. Each one too busy fighting the other to even remember why they came after you in the first place. Number 11, their plans against you are rewritten before they can launch them. Their plans against you are rewritten before they can launch them. That's the part that leaves your enemies stunned and drained. Not that you somehow managed to survive attacks, but that so many of their attacks never even make it out of the planning stage. They spend hours, days, even months constructing elaborate schemes. And just when they think it's ready to strike, something collapses. Innerly backs out at the last second. Resources they were counting on suddenly dry up. Miscommunication tears apart their coordination. It feels to them as if the blueprint itself has been tampered with because it has. This is where the unseen hand of your protection works at its finest. It doesn't wait for every weapon to be launched before stepping in. It intercepts the design while it's still being drafted. The trap they thought would corner you gets erased before it ever touches the ground. They may not realize it, but their very thoughts and intentions are being edited in real time. They wake up one morning with the same hatred, but no longer the same opportunity. The pieces just won't come together the way they imagined. This is why so many of your enemies end up frustrated, paranoid, and exhausted. To them, it feels like bad luck or poor planning. But when the same bad luck happens over and over, it becomes undeniable. Their efforts are being sabotaged by something bigger than them. They're left with the bitter realization that their plans don't belong to them. No matter how detailed their plotting, the final draft is out of their control. What makes this even more humiliating for them is that you often don't even know the depth of what they attempted. You're walking forward, unaware of how many weapons were being formed behind the scenes, while those weapons quietly dissolved before they could ever be aimed. Meanwhile, they're stuck with the sting of wasted energy and the haunting knowledge that someone or something keeps pulling the rug out from under them. That's why your protection is so untouchable. It doesn't just defend you reactively, it dismantles attacks proactively. The blueprint gets rewritten before the ink even dries. And nothing is more shocking to your enemies than realizing their grand plans keep dying in the womb, never allowed to see the light of day. Number 12, you're not just being protected, you're being positioned. You're not just being protected, you're being positioned. Protection alone would keep you safe, but what surrounds you doesn't stop there. Allies don't just block attacks or deflect threats. They actively maneuver circumstances in your favor. Opportunities appear as if by coincidence. People who opposed you stumble in ways that benefit you. Paths that were once closed suddenly swing wide, and doors that seemed unreachable open with perfect timing. Every step you take is guided not by chance, but by a deliberate alignment that ensures you move exactly where you need to be. This is why your survival feels almost effortless compared to your enemy's struggles. While they exhaust themselves, the game itself is being rewritten. They think you're reacting to luck or timing, but in reality, you're being strategically placed. You move through life with a safety net that doesn't just cushion you, it propels you forward. When someone tries to block you, they're unwittingly stepping into a pattern that redirects their energy back onto themselves, leaving your path clearer. What makes this particularly disorienting for your enemies is the precision of it. Every misstep they make seems almost orchestrated. Every failure timed in your favor. They can't anticipate it because it doesn't follow human logic or predictable rules. This is directional protection. It's not reactive, it's proactive. Your allies see the bigger picture, the long-term outcome, and they position you so that each moment of intervention strengthens your standing, not just your safety. It also changes the dynamics of power. You're no longer just surviving attacks. You're advancing in ways they never expected. The very forces they thought would control outcomes are now steering events in a way that benefits you. Their schemes collapse while your momentum grows. Their influence diminishes while yours quietly expands. That's why their frustration is so palpable. They can't figure out how you keep gaining ground, how doors keep opening, and how their best-laid plans consistently fail. The answer is simple. Your protection is not passive, it's directional. Every move, every shift, every coincidental opportunity is designed to place you exactly where you need to be, ensuring that not only do you survive, but you thrive. Number 13, they don't just fear what you could lose. They fear what you could unleash. They don't just fear what you could lose. They fear what you could unleash. The energy contained within you isn't just personal power. It's a force that radiates outward, touching every system, every plan, every person connected to those who oppose you. If harm were to come your way, that energy wouldn't disappear quietly. It would erupt, spilling over in ways your enemies cannot predict or control. Every betrayal, every attack, every attempt to weaken you would ricochet back on those who initiated it, creating chaos far beyond the original scope. That's why protecting you isn't just an act of kindness. It's a matter of containment. Your resilience itself is a stabilizing force. The world around you adjusts because your presence holds a balance your enemies rely on without realizing it. When they plot against you, they aren't just targeting one person. They are testing the limits of a system that is intricately connected to your endurance. Your strength prevents storms from forming prematurely, shields from collapsing, and strategies from unraveling. That's why their fear is palpable. They know that if your strength is compromised, the consequences will extend far beyond what they intended. What makes this situation even more terrifying for them is that they can't measure or predict the magnitude of what could be unleashed. It isn't limited to physical or material consequences. It's energy, influence, and outcomes cascading in ways that expose every weakness, every betrayal, every hidden agenda. Their attempts to manipulate or harm you are constantly under the risk of triggering forces they can't control, forces they can't bribe, and forces they can't outrun. The irony is clear. The very people trying to weaken you are terrified of the potential strength you carry. They are compelled to tread lightly, not because they respect you, but because they understand deep down that the fallout from harming you is far greater than they can handle. Every failed attack reinforces that truth. That's why you remain untouchable. Your enemies don't just fail to break you. They are held in check by the very power they fear will one day be unleashed. Your resilience contains chaos they cannot face, and your protection ensures that energy remains a shield rather than a weapon aimed at yourself. The universe and those guarding you understand that some storms are far too dangerous to release, and you are the vessel keeping it at bay. Number 14, your allies don't owe you anything, yet they move like they do. Your allies don't owe you anything, yet they move like they do. That's what makes the protection around you so extraordinary and unnerving to your enemies. These are not people bound by contracts, favors, or personal obligation. They weren't bribed, coerced, or manipulated into action. Every step they take on your behalf is propelled by forces far beyond human motivation, ego, politics, ambition. None of it drives them. What guides them is something higher, something that compels movement without explanation. And even they cannot fully articulate why they are acting in your favor. This is what shocks those who oppose you. They assume everyone has a price or a motive that can be exploited. They believe influence can be bought or allegiance coerced. But your allies operate outside those rules. Their intervention is not transactional. It doesn't follow the ordinary laws of human interaction. They intervene at critical moments, shift outcomes in your favor, and cover gaps you didn't even know existed. Not because they want to, but because an invisible current carries them there. What makes this even more remarkable is the consistency. It's not random. It's not occasional luck. Every key move, every protective measure, every strategic nudge is part of a larger design that flows beyond conscious thought. Your enemies cannot trace it, cannot anticipate it, and cannot interfere with it because it is not controlled by the usual levers of power. They see results and fail to understand the cause. That frustration builds quietly into desperation, and there's an added layer of irony. Your enemies assume your influence depends on you manipulating or cultivating these alliances. They don't realize the alliances exist because the forces that surround you recognize your value and enforce it. Your allies' movements are a reflection of that recognition, not your effort. They act as if indebted, but they are only instruments of a design far greater than individual loyalty or human calculation. This is why the protection around you is so untouchable. It's not fragile. It cannot be bargained with or turned against you. The forces compelling your allies are indifferent to manipulation or threat. They simply act, and in acting they keep you secure, unshakable, and far beyond the reach of those who thought they could control your fate. Your enemies are left baffled, facing a protection that has no price tag, no loyalty contract, and no human limitation. You are not merely surviving. You are orchestrated, shielded, and positioned by forces that your enemies cannot comprehend. Every layer of protection around you is intentional, precise, and unstoppable. From allies in high places to invisible guardians moving in silence, your life is safeguarded by a network that anticipates attacks, neutralizes threats, and even converts every scheme against you into proof of your enemy's failure. The very institutions and people your enemies counted on to crush you have become instruments of your preservation. And every plot, betrayal, or plan they launch collapses before it can touch you. Your presence has shifted the dynamics of power for itself. Enemies fracture under their own schemes. Trust erodes among conspirators, and alliances crumble, while opportunities swing open in your favor. Protection around you is not passive. It's directional. It doesn't just shield you from harm. It maneuvers circumstances, channels energy, and ensures that every step you take carries the weight of a future too significant to be interrupted. The very strength that could be unleashed in your breaking keeps chaos contained, demonstrating that your resilience is both a shield and a force multiplier. And the most shocking truth of all is that none of this is owed to you. Your allies move as they do because something higher compels them, something beyond ambition, ego, or transaction. Their devotion is written into the invisible architecture of your life, and even they cannot fully explain it. That is why attempts to harm, undermine, or manipulate you never succeed. Your life is under a decree that transcends ordinary understanding. You are untouchable not by chance, not by luck, but by design. Every enemy defeated, every failed scheme, every opportunity that aligns perfectly in your path is proof that forces far greater than human calculation are moving in your favor. You are protected, positioned, and preserved for a purpose that will ripple far beyond today. And your enemies are powerless to alter it. Stand in that truth, know it. Your story is no longer just survival. It is dominance, resilience, and a quiet demonstration that when divine alignment moves in your favor, no scheme, no alliance, and no force on earth can touch you. You are untouchable, unshakable, and destined to move in ways your enemies will never see coming. Your protection is real. Your positioning is deliberate. Your power is undeniable, and now the world can only watch. If this message hit you, if you felt the weight of every revelation, then don't just let it pass. Make it count. Subscribe to the channel now and become part of a community that sees what others can't. Hit that like button to show you recognize the truth. Leave a comment to claim your voice and share your perspective. And share this video to wake up someone who needs to understand the power, protection, and destiny surrounding them. Every action you take here amplifies the message and spreads awareness that some forces are untouchable, unstoppable, and undeniable, just like you. God bless you.